Hey there, it's Emily on Sailing Vessel Temptress, today with another video about knots and rope work. Today I'm going to show you how to make a 3-strand I-splice, which takes this and turns it into this. If you don't know how to do a 3-strand I-splice, you are going to know by the end of today. It is super easy. I learned how to do it in about 10 minutes, and I'm hoping I can teach it to you that fast too. By the end of this video, you will have a new skill that you can use aboard your boat. If you watch our channel, you know that my husband Clark and I live and travel aboard an antique sailboat where we pretty much fix and maintain everything ourselves. So if you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button so you get new content every week, and leave us a like and leave us a comment about what other kind of skills you want to learn for aboard your boat. Let's get started learning the I-splice. There are many times when you might want to put a loop in the end of a piece of rope. Now you could tie a bowline, quick and easy. We show you how to do that in the other knots video up here. There's some problems with it though. A bowline is going to take away from the overall strength of the piece of rope. It's going to create some chafe points, and you're not going to get a smooth shape. You're going to get a lumpy shape, which doesn't look great. An I-splice, on the other hand, is going to be less not strong. It's going to be more strong than the bowline is. It's going to be smooth, and it's going to have fewer chafe points. This is also a semi-permanent way to put an eye into the end of a rope, whereas this is more of a quick temporary fix. So those are the differences. So what are some applications of an I-splice in 3-strand on a boat? Most modern boats don't use 3-strand for their running rigging, with some exceptions like our friend Conrad, who has a really cool boat. You should check it out here. But for something like the anchor line, for a snubber line, for a handy billy, for the ratlins, the 3-strand is going to be easier to work with, it's cheaper, and it's got a little bit of stretch to it, which is nice in some applications too. Here's an example of where you might use 3-strand. This is a handy billy. You use it to lift things, you get more purchase. This one's with modern yacht braid. You can see the I-splice up here. And this is the older one that we used to have with 3-strand. You can see the I-splice down here. We use this to lift the motor on our dinghy. Stretch is okay in this application, so using 3-strand is perfectly valid for something like a handy billy. These are our ratlins or ratlines, and we use I-splices to make the rungs, essentially, of our ladder. Here's some 3-strand we use as a snubber for our anchor, so you can see the I-splice here where the shackle connects. And in fact, this chafed through at one point, so we fixed it with a short splice, which is a very similar technique. Probably the most important application for this is your anchor line. Everybody's got an anchor line. It should be 3-strand because it's got that stretch to it, and anchor lines chafe very often. So if you know how to do this, rather than having to hire somebody or buy a new anchor line or something ridiculous like that, you can just cut it, create a new loop, and do your eye, and then you're good to go. What I'm going to show you today is this I-splice for 3-strand rope. This isn't going to work for yacht braid. That's a different, much more involved process that maybe we'll go into in another video. But today it's going to be 3-strand I-splice. Other than having some actual 3-strand on hand, let's talk about the other tools you're going to need for this project. So number one, you're going to need some 3-strand. Because this is a video and because I'm showing you, I'm going to use some obnoxiously big 3-strand. This is left over from, I think, some mooring lines that we made for a friend. Fair warning, this is kind of crappy rope. It falls apart as soon as you take it apart, but it's nice and big, so I'm going to be able to show you really up close where everything goes. So hopefully this is like the jumbo crayons that you give kids. It'll be easy to see and explain everything I'm doing today. The other thing we're going to need is some tape, because if you don't tape the ends of your line, are they going to stay together? No, afraid not. We're also going to use some small string or waxed twine to mark off and cinch off some of the knot while we're working on it. You can also use this for whipping at the end if you wanted. You're also going to want some sort of fid for this project. So here's a fancy fid. Very nautical looking. It's a marlin spike. It's got a shackle key on it. It's got a bottle opener on it. It's got cool stuff. It feels really good in your hand. Isn't that cool looking? If you want one of those, we'll put a link in the description. But there's some more basic ones too. So this is more of an antique fid. You put it through, you grab the line and you pull it back. It's kind of like a big spiky needle. And then since they invented sheet metal, you can get these pretty cheaply. These just go through. You put in the line and then you can pull it through like that. So those are 3 different kinds of fibs. If you're cheap or you don't have something or you're just practicing at home, you can just wrap your strands of the line really tightly in masking tape or electrical tape, sort of like so you have a shoelace end to it. When I did this one, I actually used Q-tips. I just broke them in half and tied them on, and it made it really easy to thread things through. So whatever you use, you're gonna need something pointy to put the rope through itself. So marlin spike, hollow fid, another version of a hollow fid, whatever you use, doesn't really matter. In some applications, it's going to be useful to have what's called a thimble. So we'll use this, for instance, if we've got an anchor line and we really want metal against metal rather than metal on rope that's going to chafe. If you want to put a shackle through the rope, think about that at this point. There's also, if you have like old fireman's hose that you want to put around for anti-chafe, whatever you want to put basically in that circular part, you'll want that. You're also going to want something to cut the rope. If you've got a hot knife, that's ideal. If you just have a regular old, like a pocket knife, you can use that, and some fire, either a lighter or a blowtorch, something like that to finish it off at the end. This is actually my favorite knife. I never used to carry a knife, but I got this one from Olight, and it's girly hand size, and it's really easy to flick. And anyway, if you like knives, I'll put a link in the description so you can check out my favorite knife. I think that's it for supplies. Another thing worth mentioning is The Rigger's Apprentice by Brian Toth. This is like the Bible for tying knots. If you know somebody who is into knots and needs a Christmas present, buy this for them. Even if they don't think they need it now, someday they'll be sitting on their boat sailing with nothing to do, and they will learn a ton of stuff. So there's actually only 2 pages dedicated to splicing, the splice I'm going to show you today. So there is a huge wealth of information. You can learn to make all kinds of cool things. So seriously, gather this stuff and do it along with me. You can watch this video through, come back. There will be timestamps, so you can back right up to the beginning of the process if you want. And if you want to watch it in slow motion, click the little gear icon and select 0.5 times speed or 0.25 times speed, and you can watch it really slowly. We can do it together, because this is really a skill that you want to have. Without further ado, let's get into it. We have our 3-strand rope here. I've also got a thimble here. We're gonna pretend that we're prepping a mooring line or an anchor line, something like that, with a thimble in it, like so. The first thing we're gonna do is decide where in this rope we're going to stop the I-splice, and it's gonna be right about here. We need to do at least 3 tucks. Since this is slippery synthetic rope, we're gonna do 5 tucks. So I've got plenty of line here allowed for. This is where my splice is gonna end. So I'm gonna cut some line. I'm just gonna kind of strangle off nice and tight here. It doesn't have to be pretty because we're gonna cut it off anyway. Just gonna do a square knot. Okay, so that's where our eye is gonna stop right there. Okay, now very important to check to make sure that your working end is going to be perpendicular to your standing end so that you get a nice weave like this. If they're going in the same direction, it's not gonna work. So let's take a look here. Here you can see the strands are gonna come out. So let's say this is gonna be our first strand. It's gonna go in here. This one's going this way. There we go, perpendicular, perfect. If it was flipped around the other way, here's our working end here. You can see the strands are going this way, and then this one is going this way. So that's not going to work. So very important that you check to make sure you have that perpendicular direction in the rope before you start. Now that I've determined where the eye is going to start there, I'm going to unwind my strands. This tape is actually a little bit old, so I'm just going to retape it quickly so it's nice and tight. We're kind of making big, chunky shoelaces. Okay, there we go. Now I'm gonna unwind this, but I'm gonna keep the twist as much as I can. Especially with this slippery synthetic fiber, it's easy for this to become unwound. So just every time I'm untwisting, I'm also twisting at the same time. All right, now we've got our little octopus here. Gonna double check one more time that we're going perpendicular, and we are. So now I'm going to turn this sideways because I think it'll be easier for you to see. Got our hollow fid, and we've got 3 strands. This one is closest, so this is going to be my first strand to work through, and I'm going to put it through right, let's see, I'm gonna put it through this strand right here. So I'm gonna stick my hollow fit in from this side, making sure I don't get any little fibers stuck in there. Stick it all the way through. And I'm gonna keep this wound pretty tight. Stick it through, pull it. This is really slippery to work with, but it's good to see. Okay, there we go. So we have our first stitch. We're essentially gonna do that 3 more times, but as we're doing this, we wanna make sure that we're continuing to wrap the rope in a rope sort of shape. So keep these twisted, and we're just gonna follow the direction of the rope, like so. Keep this twisted, and this will be the next one that goes down here. Okay, now you can see how these are in a nice little line coming out. We just got one more to do. Again, keep that twist nice, and it's gonna go through this one. In some ways, working with this bigger line is easier to show you, but in some ways, this is a big pain in the butt compared to little line, because there's less to get unraveled. Okay, now you can see 1, 2, 3, right in a row. We have our first stitch, so each one has 1. We're gonna do 5. So the next thing I'm gonna do is put 3 tucks per line, and I'm gonna start at the top, and you'll see it's gonna end up coming out right on the bottom, kind of continuing that line down. So let's do that. So there it is now. We're gonna turn it up on end. Now what we're gonna do is go over, then under, then over. Just like weaving. So over, so we gotta go under this one. Okay, so that's our first over under. We're gonna do 2 more over unders. So it's gonna be over this one, then under this one. Okay, over, under. And 1 more. Over this one, under that one. You can see how taping it is really helping me here. It would be a huge pain if this was not taped. Okay, so you can see we've made it all the way around, and it's going right under this next loop. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we've done it right. Okay, now for the second one, again, 3 overs and 3 unders, starting from the top, and it's gonna end up coming out right down here, right where the first one came out, right underneath there. Over and under this one. Okay, that's our first over under. Next over under is here. And 1 more over under. Over, under. Now we just did the same thing with the third one. and over under. All right, so now all of our strands have 4 tucks in them, and we just have to do one more. And if we've done this right, we should see the 1, 2, 3, how they've lined up in the beginning, repeated right at the end. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, that's our standing end, and 1, 2, 3, our working end. Right, nice and neat. So just one more stitch per strand. Always working from the top to the bottom, or the right to the left, from the splice end to the end. Okay, so I'm going to go over this one, under this one. You can see this actually uses up a lot more of the rope than you think it will. You think you left a big long tail like this, but it's going to eat up that length pretty quick. Okay, that's 1. Counting out loud is always helpful. Even though it's just 3, it's very easy to end up thinking you're done when you're just at 2 instead of 3. This is 2. And 3. And again, checking, are they nice? In a nice row. 1, 2, 3, there's the standing end, 1 all the way that way, and 1, 2, 3 of working end. I'm just gonna go through, because this is such a big chunky rope, I'm just gonna make sure everything is twisted the way I want it to. Just shimmy it around a little bit. Individual strands, some of them are a little more loopy than other ones. This is the absolute cheapest of Chinese rope. So if I'm successful in this one, anything you use is going to be easier than this, I promise. You can see now, because I marked this up at the top, this is nice and tight here. And you can see the nice taper that this has, because this is 6 strands thick, essentially, and then it goes to being 5 strands thick and 4 strands thick, and then the original 3 strands. So it's got that nice taper to it. That's what you get when you ice splice. So let's go ahead and finish this off. Once you finish tying your splice, you're going to want to finish it off, like so. So the first, take off your shoes, find a place to pull it against, and then you can do one of 3 things. You can take a hot knife, which is ideal because it's just the cleanest, easiest way to cut it. You could also use a knife and then use a blowtorch, or you could cut it off with a knife and then use a lighter. You can see on this example here, the hot knife is the top one here. Again, cleanest, and then you've got kind of like soot and burnt marks on the other ones. They all work, but if you want it to look really nice, hot knife is probably the way to go. If you don't own a soldering iron / hot knife / handy dandy one of these things, it's very useful. You can use it to cut sailcloth. You can use it for melting lines. I've used it to write my name in the soles of my shoes because I leave them at the beach all the time and I always forget them. So now they say SV Temptress on them. It's just a handy little thing to have. I'm going to cut this off now. So won't need that anymore. And there you have it, the 3-strand ice splice. Now you know how to do it yourself, and guess what? You can actually make money doing this. So this is actually leftover from a mooring line that somebody bought in the Bahamas. They were tying up their boat for hurricane season, didn't know what they were doing. They said, hey, Clark, can you prepare these lines for us? And he put in 4 of these, charged 25 bucks a piece, and it was an easy $100. So there you go. If you get good at working with line and working with rope, there's a little source of income out for you when you are sailing or cruising or whatnot. So there you go. Now that you've watched the video, it's time to try it. Get out your stuff, get your hands on some of this rope, and try to do it. And if you learn how to do it, show it to a friend. It's gonna come in really handy, especially with your anchor line and just little odd jobs around the boat. And there's a lot of good 3-strand rope that can be had for really cheaply. Everybody wants to have this fancy modern yacht braid, but 3-strand is really good stuff and it lasts decades and decades. So it's good to know how to work with it. If you liked this video, give it a like with the like button. Leave a comment, let us know what other kinds of knots and rope work videos you're interested in. Maybe we'll make some more of those. And if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and you can see new content every week. Thank you as always to our patrons who help us keep everything tied together. We appreciate you and we will see you in the next video. It's not a rope, it's a line. Well, a rope is a raw material that you use to make a line. A line is a piece of rope that has a job. So until this has a job, this was rope. Hey Clark.
Yes, Emily?
Do you know where most of the knots of the world were invented?
I have no clue.
Thailand.
Oh, of course.
You want to see a magic trick?
Sure.
I'm going to make this knot disappear. You want to see a dragon bowline? It's a very special bowline. Dragon bowline. I'm done.